Today's episode is brought to you by EliteFTS.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of Elite FTS for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it. Now, onto the show.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. And we're live. We're getting better. We're ready to roll.
We had a slight conversation before this, and we both agreed that this will either be a really good episode or a really bad episode.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like my blast and dust thing.
Right.
It's going to be on one or the other side, but I'm not too sure where that's going to fall just yet.
Yep. So this is episode, is this like 87? I think it's 87.
Yeah, 87.
87? Perfect.
87.
Last episode we had Jugie and Joey on. This one, just me and Dave going back to the original. And this is actually the last episode that I'll be on with you before the end of the year, I believe, because I'm not around next week.
Yeah.
It's been a fucking wild and crazy year, Dave.
Yeah.
Wild and crazy. I was talking to Jacob actually yesterday. We're going over some of the information and the data with like on the background, like downloads and whatnot. I think we've done this will be the 33rd podcast since we restarted.
Damn. That's more consistent than the consistent that I thought we were going to be.
Yeah. Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
think about that.
And it's it's just crazy. You just blink and all of a sudden it's been a year.
Yeah.
Because my year is up in March. Like I've been here for 1 year in March.
Has it really?
Yeah.
Good God.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. So since the last time we spoke, obviously we had Jugie and Joey out on the last episode, but I had my meet. I did as well as I could have on the day. Training has kind of taken a little bit of a back seat, just kind of recover and recharge a little bit as after meets people tend to do. If you guys haven't checked out the video of me kind of going over the details of my meet, Dave, any thoughts on how we did between myself and Adam?
It's a meet.
Yeah,
right.
It definitely was. It was a meet.
That's why we spoke before the meet, was to go over the training.
Yep.
You know, how the training was for that, and then what the correspondence of the training is to the meet. I think it corresponded, carried it over well. There's, things to learn with Adam per se. For you, it went well. Nothing surprised me.
Yeah, right.
Which is good and bad. Because it would have been 9 for 9 is always like a good surprise.
Right.
But everything kind of fell where about it was going to fall.
Yeah.
So the training was well. Everything went well for it. There's nothing looking back that there's nothing I don't know. It's a give and take, right? Because it's if there was something I could change, I probably wouldn't have had you do the circa max. But what happens if you're not doing that? Then you're training in a different monolift than what Adam is, and then you're losing that camaraderie,
right?
And which contributes.
That was a major pushing point for us. Like I think going through that with him kind of solidified.
It's a huge
training.
thing. So I think that the negated loss of not doing it was made up by sharing the same rack.
Yeah.
With that. So if this was to if it was to be redone now, then I could see breaking it up and then just taking turns.
Yeah.
With the sets, kind of how we do the train your ass off sometimes. And that would help a little bit better, just getting used to I don't want to say the gear, because it's getting used to the actual environment of the meet.
Yeah. Right.
Where you're still doing that, but the bands and chains to me, you lose some specificity with that does come back in. I mean, I could say, well, another week might have been able to help with that as well, just as far as dialing in where the depth kind of needs to be.
Sure.
Right. Because I don't know if we really went over strategy with that either. Mm-mm. Where you want to have people prepared to squat lower than they may have to squat.
Sure.
And always prepared for that. And then after the first, if they so decide to pivot because the judging's looser and everybody else is pivoting, so mm-hmm. there becomes that competitive nature, then those adjustments can be made and go up. But you have to be able to make the adjustments to go the other way, mm-hmm. where you did squat higher there than you squat here. It's just a specificity thing.
Well, right.
So and some of that gets lost because in the bottom with the chains, it's completely deloaded. With the bands, it's deloaded mm-hmm. to a point, but it's still sort of deloaded. In a meet, you're a whole 100% loaded
yep.
at the bottom. So that would be the only thing there. The rest was good.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we were having all sorts of conversations about this, that, like almost like what if situations. But then you get literally under the bar and it's like, unless you've practiced a ton, your brain goes at your ass. Mm-hmm. Like it just, I was so confident going in, and after that first squat, I was like, holy shit, this is way different than everything else.
Well, it's what you're training for. I mean, it's the highest, with that skill acquisition, it's the highest level of the skill acquisition.
Yeah.
Well, not really. I mean, if you were completely fatigued, that might be a little bit higher level. But it really is, because you have to have everything prepared for that void, right? Dark side, whatever you want to call it, for that moment that happens when you grab the bar. Then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I don't even know who I am anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know where I am. I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Weird, man.
I just have to do this.
Yeah.
And have everything locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, it did. It really did. So the form breakdowns and stuff like that wasn't really an issue. So a lot of that did stick with that. So like I said, there's not a whole lot I would change, but no, there is. The other things we already talked about, how to mitigate bicepial shoulder, which both you guys had, right? Mm-hmm. Which tells me this is training. This is an individual. This Correct. Is something in the program, because the same exact thing, mm-hmm. right? Then where does that stem from? I think we kind of figured out how to mitigate it. But next time there'll be something else. Yeah. So.
Well, it was cool to have gone through that process with Adam, and even Tom was there. And to have the tools in the toolbox to kind of get you through that first attempt, the second attempt, third, right? Because as I was progressing, the weight was getting heavier. I was like, oh shit, here it is. Here it's happening at the same weights. It's happening at the same time, mm-hmm. but we had the means to kind of self-correct.
Yeah.
And I knew, and this is going to sound so fucked up, but I knew that no matter how shitty it felt on the squat, it would go away after the rep, after I dug into it for a while. So mm-hmm. my third attempt, I remember hearing your voice in my head, shoulders or elbows, and I was like, all right, put it in that spot. It hurts like a bitch. I don't care. Put it in that spot. And I just went with it. And then I remember coming out from under the bar, holding my arm, and that shit was fucking like shaking. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, that's okay, because I can just dig into it, and it was fine. And mm-hmm. then I benched, and it wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. But if I hadn't gone through that, if I hadn't pushed myself to that point or been pushed by the people around me, I would have been like, this is bad.
No, that's true.
This is really bad. Mm-hmm. Right? Because, mm-hmm. but I was able to just be like, all right, this sucks for 8 seconds or whatever it is.
I mean, you could have pulled out had you not known.
Exactly.
Because you don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, it just hurts like a bitch. You're like, oh shit, is this gonna hurt on my second attempt bench out of nowhere and fall on my face?
Right.
So so that's a good point.
Yeah, and that was but there are so many different levels of nuance to executing at your highest level at those attempts, right? Because mm-hmm. I got my knees wrapped way too early. And then I was standing there with fucking numb feet. And I was like, oh no. Which I really think had a lot to do with why that first attempt moved so slow, because I couldn't feel my fucking feet.
Mm-hmm. It sucks. I'll go with you on that one. That sucks.
So it was a learning curve. But again, overall it went very positive. Adam did fairly well, not as well as he wanted to, but again, again, growing and learning. But the coolest part is I finally started to fill in that damn suit for the deadlifts because I was 12 pounds over what I weighed in at.
Yeah.
We had the old bloating protocol in place, and I ended up pulling 639, which is great. Never did that. I never did that here. So that was really, really good. Overall, very positive experience. They had mentioned they have Eric up there at 2XL has a bench only meet in April. I think it's an autism awareness meet that me and Adam are going to be driving up to and just participating in, which will be great. But yeah, no, that was overall the whole experience was positive start to finish. So that was good. One thing, and I want to, and Jacob, if we can cue this up. I saw something today that I want to see your opinion on, and we're going to put it up on the TV here. I think, and I'm going to need your help coming up with all of the descriptors of this exercise, because this may be the most conjugate exercise I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so we're looking for all the adjectives.
This is all the adjectives, because, and I need a professional to tell me how many adjectives are going to be going on in this video. So Jacob will cue this up, and for all the audio listeners of the podcast, we'll put this down below. This is the most conjugate thing I've ever seen.
All right, hold on, pause it for a minute. All right, so this bar is, it's being held by the chains around his neck, or do the chains attach to the bar?
I think the chains are around his neck, and he has a neck harness.
Well, I know the neck harness. I'm okay with the neck harness. So, I mean, we'll talk about it. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. So the bar, the chain, I don't see very well. So the chains are not attached. They're not screwed into the front of the safety squat bar.
Correct. Yep, they're going around his neck.
So it's just around his neck. That's okay. Let's go. See what happens next. There we go. All right, go back down. Okay, go down slow. I want to see, reverse it. I want to see if the barbell touches the farmer's hand, right? I think it touched, right? Go up, slow. Right. Does it hit?
Oh,
cheating, right there. It doesn't count. He's cheating. Right there. That's not conjugate. He's fucking cheating, right? It's because now that lift is helping that lift. So this isn't conjugate. This is just flat out cheating. All right, go ahead and keep going. Let's see where this goes. Maybe it's a repetition movement. Okay, see where it goes from here. All right. Oh, now wait. It's a challenge set. Or is he racking it? Oh, it's a trap bar with barbells.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a trap bar with the barbells. The barbells are they on they're in the back, are they on like a landmine core blaster type thing?
I thought they were just sitting on the trap bar.
But there's nothing on the other. I can't see what's on the other side.
Yeah, I can't see what's on the other end. It could be.
Now, okay, so I think the bars are attached to the trap bar with bands. Right? Which means that you got multiple bands.
Uh-huh.
So you got.
Well, he's got the hanging weights. That's brilliant.
The hanging weights. I don't know if I really understand the hanging weights. Right.
With everything going on right now.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, I've done something kind of close to this, where I've worn a neck harness, doing a lot of safety squat bar stuff to be able to teach my head to drive back. So I have done that, but I'm not sure where the weights in the neck harness are at, because the neck harness isn't on the barbell. So I like the neck harness. I like the yoke bar. The deadlift part, I have seen people do the yoke bar deadlifts.
Yep.
Or whatever you want to call that, with I'm still confused. Go back down. I get because I get it. So he lets go of the bar. This is well thought out. This is well executed, right? Because I mean, the neck harness could use a little bit more weight. I mean, come on, dude.
For sure.
Fucking
right.
10 pounds on a neck harness. You know that's one problem.
Not
That should be like
anybody with
that should be at least a quarter or a clock. You know, if it was a clock, that would be better.
I don't think those are on land. I think those are on the trap bar. Yeah, they're attached to the trap bar with bands.
What he should do right there is rep that fucker out.
Oh yeah.
You know, then he gets some conjugate contrast training. So not French contrast training, conjugate contrast training. Oh shit! And he's got on the Liver King fucking wrist things.
Yeah, because your wrists need to be heavier.
Yeah, yeah. This is like
So
it's got to be a PR.
I mean,
it has to be. So how would you log this? That would be the question. So you got to.
My question for you is, how would you make this more conjugate? I mean, there's definitely more room for chains. There's definitely more room for bands.
I mean, he could. I mean, seriously. I mean, he could have chains on the front and back of the trap bar. Maybe not. Well, I don't know. He's got to step into the trap bar. Let's think about this. Because the chain's got to go on the front and back of the trap bar. They could go on the sides of the trap bar, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But I bet he tried. I think this is conjugated out, man. I really do, because I'm not too sure what else you can do with this. Granted, he's not using anywhere near enough gear.
Oh,
like he should have
that's
on,
what I was thinking.
Briefs and sleeves. It's fucking ain't wearing sleeves. This is not hardcore. If he's not wearing any kind of supportive wear at all. Play this in entirety again. For those that are listening on the podcast, I can't even explain this for a second.
Yeah, we'll be putting this down below for
this is I believe it's an eccentric squat with a concentric hip hinge. So we got, because this isn't so much a hinge here, right? This is like a squat. There's a squat. There's he fucked his form up bad too. How do you have butt wink with that much shit? The fuck? So obviously he needs more shit behind him.
Yeah, he needs to counteract those forces.
There's too much in front, so it's all quad dominant. He's got no posterior chain development going on here, which kind of knocks. There's another strike he gets, knocking it out of the conjugate category.
Well, it's all about the hips, right? Got to get the hips through. The focus. I would love to see all the takes where he doesn't successfully do this.
You imagine because think about
how
this.
Do you warm up for this?
Let's be realistic here. This camera is not moving, right?
No.
So this is on a tripod, or it's on in a shoe on a bench, right? So it's either a shoe pod or a tripod, which you got to frame yourself up first. I've done this with my stupid washed up meathead stuff. You got to frame it up, right? And then it takes several times to frame it up. Now, to frame this up, I guess he could have done it with just the yoke bar.
Now, does he warm up with just empty bars in those positions? Like, how does he get into these? There you go. This must have just been a one and done.
Where's the bar rack? Check this out. Where's the safety squat bar rack? So he's backing up. I see one part of the power rack there.
Does he just back up?
You see what I'm saying? Like,
does he back into where the mirror is? Does he back right into there?
He has to go sideways to get it racked. Right?
He needs a backup beeper.
He does. Which, why not set it up?
My favorite is that the bar at his waist is in that chain. Wait a minute. Oh, he has a dip belt. And the barbell is attached to the chain around his neck.
So the dip belt's like a belt squat, right? So you got a yoke squat, belt squat. So this is I got to put the SS yoke bar first just because we sell it. So he's got an SS yoke bar.
Found on EliteFTS.com.
Yes. So it's and I don't even know where to begin. I would have to write this down.
It's a lot of steps.
There's a lot of adjectives going on here. The problem is by the time we get to the actual verb, it's a butt wink.
Oh yeah, yeah. Form not looking good.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, noun wise, it's conjugate.
Now,
Conjugate's not a noun though, is it? Because conjugate would be an adverb. Here goes my Sheena.
Sheena, help. Help. So the real question is, are we going to be doing this over the weekend?
Hold. Oh, there we go. No, because you guys are post meet. But I'm trying to see if there's any like good idea. If there's any idea. His eyes are not up. That's for damn sure. He ain't holding anything because the chains are holding it. All the weights are being held by something.
Dave, I can't even hold this together. Dave, I got a real secret for you, and I think this is the media team's Christmas present to you.
Yeah.
You ready?
What's that?
We have a Dave Tate soundboard.
You got a soundboard?
One of the guys from the Massonomics crew bought a website called tatesounds.com. Jacob, can you pull it up and show Dave?
I got to see this. This is based on the dumb shit I've been doing on Instagram, I suppose.
Yeah. So they've been collecting sound bites from you for years. He messaged me a few weeks ago and was like, oh, his name is, let me just pull it up. Nathan, where is it? What's his last name?
God, I could use a site like that. It would help so much.
Tatesounds.com. I'm not even making that shit up. Nathan Ekberg. Thank you, Nathan Ekberg. Created this website, bought the domain for tatesounds.com. And we have been playing. I'm surprised you haven't heard us upstairs. We've been playing this shit constantly. And Jacob's just switching over the video to be able to see it. But he messaged me a few weeks ago and he has and he keeps updating it with more and more.
Or he follows my Instagram.
There's going to be more. Oh, shit. So we'll
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to get it up there.
You won't be able to see it? So what I can do. Yeah, there it is. Yep,
so
you got
press, head up. Good job. Hell yeah.
These are fucking brilliant.
You can do that. No, that's like a link tree.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties with the computer share.
All right.
You can link it.
Yeah.
People can.
Oh, yeah.
It.
So, Jacob, can we go through some of these sounds?
Oh, yeah, we can.
All right. Can you go? You need to roll through just a few of these so Dave can now hear some of the greatness that is this website. So.
What the fuck? Go ahead. That actually is not a bad fucking idea right there. What was the first one? I'm trying to think of where that come from.
It was a post squat.
All right.
Definitely post squat. Keep rolling, Jacob.
What the fuck? Stop. Lats. Belly. Stay there. You're gonna fucking do this. This is bullshit. You can do that easy. You gotta stay. You're not tight enough. This here needs to be tighter. You know, it's like you need to listen to this hardcore stuff. You're a puss.
Purple monster.
Looks solid, Sam. Good job, Sam.
Hello there.
And at the bottom, they have a Sam section.
Oh my God.
And it's called Brown Sounds. So that's going to be on all of our videos and podcasts going forward. Now we have a shock jock that is Jacob that he can just drop some of these sound bites. Which is great.
That works.
Holy shit. Oh God. I couldn't even hold it together. When he started pumping them in, I couldn't hold it. I couldn't fucking hold it. So we've been
That's good shit right there.
so Nathan Eckberg, thank you very much. One of the Massonomics guys. Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. We've been trying to put that in a video somewhere. We're going to surprise it with you somehow. But I think putting it on the podcast just to let you know that that exists, and now will have to be the homepage of everybody on the media team going forward. Holy shit. So we ended up getting, and I think now could be kind of a good time for that. We'll kind of pivot into some of these questions that we have. I know we've gotten a lot of people asking questions from the last podcast, and guys, put your super chats, put your questions in the comment section here. Make sure that we can see them. We had a lot of questions pop up on the last podcast that we didn't end up getting to, but we just got a super chat from Steve Higgins here. Thank you, Steve. I love doing lying dumbbell pullovers, but they really aggravate my right elbow tricep tendon. Any suggestions? This is actually a more common question with doing specifically like tricep work, or they're doing Tate presses incorrectly or something like that, right? So getting that sort of
I get it with a tricep
aggravation.
work, but I don't know if I get it with
The pullover?
a pullover, because your arms should be kind of stationary there. So there shouldn't be a lot of elbow bend. So first thing I would say, what's the point of the pullover? And that would be the first biggest question.
Yep.
With that is, now if there's elbow pain with that, then I would question how much lat, usually pullovers lats, right?
Right,
so
absolutely.
I'm going to question that, how much lat's actually being worked compared to a tricep extension, and use that as an indicator that the exercise is probably going a little sideways, and try to fix it that way.
Yeah.
Pullovers are a weird movement because personally I think it's got limited value, but if somebody's going to do it, I would add usually either a cable unit where you're lying flat, so it's got more of that pull back, or bands with the kettle. I used to take bands around a kettlebell.
Yeah.
And do it that way. That way you keep that tension, and then you got to be, I don't want to say careful, but you got to be aware of the shoulder joint and what you're trying to work. To me, a pullover, I mean, being the meathead lifter, the pullover is to help you aid in you getting the bar out when you bench.
Right. Well,
that's the most specific purpose that's for. Now, with that being that specific purpose, I'd really rather have somebody use a barbell on a cable machine, or potentially a barbell just hanging from a band in a standing position, and getting a little bit greater range of motion and probably better lat contraction.
Right.
Just because of where you are in relationship to space and gravity when you're laying flat, maximum lat contraction, and then all of a sudden,
nothing.
There's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, just a very simple straight arm pull down, right? I think it's just again, and this goes for any exercise. If you're doing an exercise and it hurts something that you're not working,
yes, in a weird way, then just
funky way.
Especially with that, when it's something like that, just pivot to something else. That's not a big deal movement. It's at best, it's a decent accessory at best. Now it might be a different conversation if it's a big compound movement like a squat or incline press, or something that would be more fundamental in. Is there any exercise that's super fundamental in any move? If it's a big fundamental movement pattern, all overhead presses hurt.
Yeah.
All vertical or horizontal hurt. Then it'd be different. But something like that, just it's the point.
Now, when it comes to tricep pain specifically, or elbow pain with that, right? You've had a fair share of elbow tricep issues in the past. Have you found that any specific variations or exercises helped kind of mitigate some of that and still get the stimulus you're looking for? Or did you just kind of like take some time away from the isolation stuff that you were doing?
Elbows is one area that I've been fortunate to not tear off. So
just right off.
Yeah, I mean, actually, outside of this past year, I've never even had any tricep issues or anything like that. So it's that whole elbow joint area, forearm bicepial tendonitis, no real big issues, but outside of the same ones that everybody else would get, which would be occasional bicepial tendonitis.
Yep.
Sometimes that weird ass pain that's in the elbow, which you can't really nail down. My course of action for that was always stop what I'm doing that hurts that.
Yeah.
Unless it's the bench, and then mitigate it, tape it, wrap it, strap it, whatever I need to do to be able to get that main work done, but maybe even skip it because to me, I saw that as there's always early warning signs with that. For me, there was always early warning. So it wasn't like a pec when it tears or it's something else that just comes out of nowhere. And it's like, the fuck just happened? Did I just tear my, it was always like, okay, something's going on.
It just feels weird.
There's not. So I always had kind of advance notice that then let's just back off of this. And that one always worried me because the people that had issues with that would always try to drive through, always took their lockout away. And it was always not only that, they would always end up, if they tore the tricep, they'd end up with uneven lockout too, which still is taking your lockout away. But that becomes an even bigger pain in the ass to figure out because now all your training starts to become compromised. So getting the movement out, getting the pain part of the movement out. So a lot of times it would be switching exercises entirely, staying off of the triceps entirely, just staying with pressing movements, keeping any type of extension out, and then bringing it back in. That's the first course. The second course was when it starts to feel good. I've always been very aware of how much weight and stress is being put on the elbow in the most vulnerable position. So the lowest position. So to me, it always made more sense to use tricep movements I could go heavier on for things strength related. That should just make common sense.
Well, right, absolutely.
So to me, like a super heavy push down never made sense because push downs to me were just the hypertrophy thing, blood flow stuff. Never made sense to stack this machine or anything on that. But and even on the real deep tricep extensions or behind the head French press or any, and when I say deep, I mean like forehead or behind tricep extensions. Any of those that had this really big arc and big range of motion, I always kept light, slower, tighter, and contracted harder because the risk in my head was always higher. So I would use those for blood work, pump work, stuff like that later in the training, but the heavier stuff, that's why I like the JM press so much, because the modified JM press, or say for a lot of people might be a close grip bench press with kind of shitty form, right?
Right.
So, and those I liked because I could pound them and it worked the crap out of the pressing part, what I call the pressing part of the tricep, the lower part of the tricep. And I never had to deal with that bullshit. And if I had that bullshit, I could still push those. But then I would use chains. I'd still use both, but 50% of whatever, if it's a floor JM or something like that, 50% of the weight would always be chain. So I would lower that bottom end. So I would, in my mind, I'd kind of calculate how much do I really need in this bottom position?
Right. Because that's what, like you had said, that's where you're going to get hurt. If you're gonna get hurt somewhere.
So what's the least effective dose and weight I need in this bottom spot, right? And this was just me thinking through my head. Certain times I always need at least 200 at the bottom spot. Why, I don't know. It's just a random number that it used to be about half what it would be if I really just went full out through the whole thing. So I need at least 50, 60% at the bottom if it was full out, but still get that top at that 100% load.
And I think just that concept could save people from really, really stupid injuries if they just, because people will think, oh, chains, it's only for squats, it's only for this. But it's like you can really use that loading pattern of that accommodating resistance to get a shit ton more out of, and you're just talking about the strength curve, right? Like you're really just talking about loading the muscle in a position as it gets more advantageous for that muscle, you're adding more weight to that bar or adding more resistance to that, right? So if you got to think like, okay, we're going to do JM presses with chains. It's like, of course, you're going to be stronger right at the last quarter inch, 2 inch, whatever it is for that lockout. There's no reason to beat the shit out of your elbow in that less advantageous position, right?
Yes. And another thing that I want to put out there is when I picked up this really bad habit when I went through my initial bodybuilding phase in college, which I'll just call it short stroking my bench, because most of those bench training sessions were just, you'd use 315 or 365 or 405. They just rep out with whatever that is.
Yep.
And so it wasn't about form technique. It was how many reps can you get? So I ended up short stroking pretty much all the reps except for the last one. And then I would justify it like, well, it's constant tension on the pecs and, you know, this stupid shit that you say when you're younger training, right? And but I kind of believed it, and at the time I probably would have told you, no, I'm doing this on purpose because that's what I believe. And to me, if I could always lock out the last couple, then I could have locked them all out, right? Because it's the last couple, you know. If I'm really trying to do this to cheat to get more reps, then I shouldn't be able to lock out the last, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when I came to Westside, that became this big clusterfuck of an issue with dynamic work because I was fast, and now the way to get faster was short stretch, just boom, you know, 3 second or 3 reps are done in like a quarter of a second.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, you know, that's, then it's like, well, you understand Louis and Kenny Patterson, and they were probably the 2 biggest, Chuck, who were the 3 biggest ones. So that's great, looks fast and presses the shit out of everybody, but you know, you ain't gonna lock shit out of the meat. And I just kept doing it, and couldn't lock shit out of the meat.
Yep.
And so I had to stop. And then, but during that time is also when my bicepial tendonitis, it went away. A lot of that went away because I had pec surgery and there was no real training. I had 6 months off of real hard training.
Right.
So the bicepial injury, that lowering type, people know what I'm talking about. It's just a nightmare.
It's awful.
You know, and you try your best to just mind fuck your way through it, but it's just, it's tough.
You can't run away from it.
It's just, yes, it just sucks.
Yeah.
And so that was always this reoccurring problem that I would just fix by putting the bench after my squat, or I'd move days. Then once I came to Westside, that went away, but I didn't understand that the reason why it went away is because my bench went away for 5 months. And then I started going back to that short stroking, and all this started to come back again. And I didn't get it because at that time I'm like, I don't understand why this is coming back now, because we already addressed moving my hands out on the squat. Now I got a squat bar. All the other culprits for this were removed. So why the fuck is this still here? And then once I started to purposely lock out every rep with intent, not hyperextending, but with intent, especially the heavier ones, and on the heavier ones holding it too. So taking out and holding it 1, 2, and it was more at that time. It was more about just the tension on the tricep. How long was that tension going to be on there for that single? So say there's 1, 2, 3, then you start to go down. It could be 8, 9 seconds for that, which I was thinking in regards to time. But what I didn't realize by doing that and then taking going from the short stroke into the full rep, for a while it had to be 3 singles, and that sucked because you hold it, and you're in the mindset of go 1, 2, 3, go 1, 2, 3, and it's like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
But it was the only way to be able to get it to fix. And plus some of the guys I was training with at the time were dickheads. So if I short stroked it, then it didn't count, you know? So some sets I'd end up doing 6 because the first 2 were that short stroke and crap. Once that came back into how it was supposed to be, and I would say it took a while, it probably took 6 months. All that bicep stuff went away and it never came back again. So I think with not obviously everybody's different. I think with a lot of the people, if you look at their benches, if they have that problem, you're going to find on the majority of their repetitions, not their heavy ones, but all their repetitions, they're short stroke and they're shit. And that's some of the problem.
No, I agree with that. Even just personally, I have in strongman, it was always just get it overhead, hold it, stabilize it, whatever. Now with benching, especially with a bench shirt, I need to fully extend that elbow, and I need to be able to maintain that position. I am so used to everything is like my right arm doesn't quite extend it as far because my biceps are so tight. My forearms are so tight, right? Same thing on the left. And I have to dig into that shit before I bench to be able to get into a better position. But I know what you're talking about because that's how I was benching for years. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Like elbows started to get funky, especially with strongman. Biceps would start to get funky. And it wasn't until I really remembered how I needed to prep to actually train what I needed to train and be able to get in those positions where I was like, shit, those are connected.
Yeah. And I'm all for supportive gear like elbow sleeves and crap like that. What I will say is it's okay to use on the big compound movement as long as it's just keeping the joint warm. It's a light elbow sleeve. It's not like wearing 3 sizes too small. But then after your bench, if you can get them the fuck off, get them off.
Yeah.
You know, even if you can get away from having to use them on like dynamic bench, don't use them. They just use it on like the heavier one. Try to not rely on them for one thing. And I do for a lot of things I do, but I peel them. I know when I need to wear them, when I don't need to wear them. Then what I wear, they're pieces of shit. I mean, they're not pieces of shit. They're single ply.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to it. I can put them on my knee. And the other place I will wear them is on my yoke bar squats too, because I grab so hard that places a lot of tension, and just wearing those helps there. But knee sleeves being the same way, you know, it's for even with that, what I like to see people do if it's conjugate, right? Because there is specificity of knee sleeves too. If you're competing, is to keep them folded down until you get to your heavy sets, then fold them up, and then fold it back down. And so you're only really using them for a couple sets and go that way, but that helps too. But it can't be your solution is what I'm trying to say.
No, for sure. And I think even for years of competing in strongman, I wouldn't press overhead without like the full regalia of like elbows and wrists and that. And I found it when we were doing dynamic work for this powerlifting meet is I wasn't wearing my elbow sleeves for dynamic work. And I found that if I benched like an asshole, it hurt way more on dynamic days than it did on the max effort days.
It's a good gauge by not wearing it, because I like what you just said with that, because it'll feel a little weird. Then if I'm understanding what you're saying, your first course of action was fix what's screwing up. Yeah. Not grab the sleeves.
Correct.
Which that's what I really like, because that's what, I mean, you don't want to become dependent on this gear shit, you know?
Absolutely. And I found that it would take me, I mean, I don't know how many, we would always do like between 8 to 12, sometimes 15, whatever. And it always took me like 3 or 4 to find, it's like, okay, if I get into the proper position that I should be in, nothing hurts.
Yes.
But if I'm being a lazy piece of shit and I'm just like flopping around on the bench, not taking it seriously, I'm like, ugh, like shit starts to hurt.
Yes.
So it was kind of that. I used the dynamic days as that kind of a test to see like, okay, where is everything at in terms of how everything feels.
A monstrous takeaway for anybody that's listening. It really is. I mean, that's a huge thing, because most people aren't going to do that. They're going to say, oh, it feels like shit. Fuck, I didn't put my elbow sleeves on. That's why.
And then you blow through you can get more out of we were using such a lower percentage on our speed days because of that, right? I mean,
just technique.
First and foremost, when doing speed work with Adam, it's not really speed work. There's so many times I'd like just fucking race him. I'm like, dude, let's go. I'm like, I got
like
shit
hanging
to do.
out in a teepee.
Little smokehouse. But it was just like, it was never as speedy as I'd wanted. So when you gave me the green light to whoop his ass on deadlifts that day, I was like, here we go. Yeah. We're doing it.
He's an oddity with that though, because he can get away with it, I think, because he's lighter, where a heavier person is going to have to be pushed.
Yeah.
You know, because if a heavier person rested as long as he rests sometimes, I would really question the training effect. Oh, because they would get so out of shape. It's unbelievable. Where he's in decent shape. I mean, it's for a little. I don't want to say it's because he's a smaller person. He's just I don't know. I mean, he falls into that. I don't want to say he's a freak, but he falls into that little Who breaks their all-time record on a box jump 2 days after a meet?
I have no idea.
I mean, that's when you're most bound. Your hips are most bound.
And he wants to be 300 pounds, like more than anybody else on the planet. He wants to walk around a fucking fat, beat up guy. Like he like loves the feeling of, I don't know if he does, like he loves the feeling of hurt and pain.
Yeah. Well, it's weird though, because
dude.
as he moves up into this next weight class, it's going to be, it's the opposite. He's going to move up into a weight class, but he's going to have lower rest periods.
Yeah.
Where normally you're going to tell somebody that's going to move up into a weight class, increase your rest periods, increase the weight, just basic bulking type stuff.
Yeah.
He's going to be the opposite. It's like, no, because you're moving up the weight class, now you actually need to worry about physically getting in shape and not just being in shape because you weigh 165 pounds.
Though I do, and he showed it a few times here, but it was to see him at a meet and have that switch, that kind of just that takeoff switch, was really impressive to see, because he went from light, laughing, joking to actually Christian Anto came up to me at the meet and was like, "Hey, your buddy seems a little flat." I was like, all right, he needs to get amped up here a little bit. And Christian goes, "Does he like getting slapped?" I was like, don't slap him, just rough him up just a little bit. But Christian is such a solid coach. He revved him up to the point where I hadn't seen that entire training block. And he crushed it. He got a call stolen, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see that him be able to express that and to show that and to come out there and just fucking kill it, which was cool to see.
He's got a big carryover.
Yes.
So I mean, the more advanced you get, I think in any sport, the higher that carryover is going to end up being. Where, I mean, I've seen people have 10, 15% the variance.
It's fucking
from
crazy.
Training lifts to meet lifts, and it's just being able to turn that on. But you got to be able to turn it on, but you still need to be able to maintain position. Because you can turn it on and miss position, and now who cares?
Right.
You can be as psyched as you want. You bend over on a squat, you're just going to
hosed.
Yeah, instead of screaming at the crowd, you're going to be screaming at the floor.
Yeah, I mean, to have Julia and Christian out there, it was very cool to see, because I've always watched them from a distance at their meets and coaching and whatnot, but to have them actually in our camp to help us on that day, that was really, really cool to see. And man, they revved up Adam something fierce, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely amazing to see. But it was funny you said about the technique, because he locked everything in and smoked his last squat. But on the attempt before that, doing that rolling thing, that ball, he just wasn't getting into position. And I knew he just wasn't locked in. And to see him to be able to come back from that and smoke that last one was really, really cool. But that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is at the end of the day, there was no real pressure on me, right? Like there's pressure on myself. There was pressure on just, I don't want to fucking suck, obviously, but it's real. Like after not hitting my first bench and like walking up to my second attempt, I was like, oh shit, like this is the real I went from that very just calm to like lock the fuck in, smoked that second one, and then I realized how close I was to fucking just not completing the meet. And it could have gone one way or the other way. But that's that up and down. And I remember that was the moment where I remember what you said about you hating to fucking actually compete. Like you loved the training but hated competing. And I was 100%. I was like, "Fuck this shit."
No,
like,
I don't. I never did, man, because you control everything that you can control.
Yeah.
And you have to get mentally prepared. I mean, all these things have to happen, but it seems like there's so much not within your control. To me, I always kind of had this thought process of what's going to happen if this meet's already kind of predetermined.
Right.
I don't know what it is predetermined to be.
Right.
But it's already, whatever it's going to be is is what it's going to be, which is I don't know how else to explain it. So if something went fucking wrong on something, it's like, well, it was supposed to go wrong. It doesn't mean it's going to go wrong on the next one. Just take advantage of whatever the next one is. But I did so many meets that over a period of time, I kind of already realized the odds of me actually doing what I want to do are very low. Now the odds of me wanting to do it are very, very high. So I'm going to give this 100%.
Oh yeah.
You know, of everything that I can to get the highest outcome, but my highest outcome most likely isn't going to happen. So deal with the shit as it comes my way and move forward from one lift to the next lift to the next lift. And that's what I didn't like, right? Because it was the only way I was able to get a higher yield outcome was to think, okay, only the, so I do all the mental rehearsal, I do the visualization, I do all that other shit of the whole meet. So I am thinking about that. But then once the meet day comes, it's just, okay, I'm only worried about my opener on the squat. That's it. I don't even know, I don't want to know what the second is because it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
All that matters is this 750 or 800 or that's it.
Yep.
Like, what are you going to do today? Will be a breakfast question. Well, I'm going to open with 825. We'll see how it goes from there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll see. And then it's okay. Then the next one, then the next one. So that made me better enjoy the experience, or at least be able to somewhat enjoy the experience of the whole thing. It allowed me to make decisions a little bit better because you're not expecting a whole lot.
Right.
But then if something actually shit out of nowhere, it's like, what the fuck? What just happened there?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I looked at Todd, or, you know, Todd was probably at all my meets and I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know, but that was solid. I'm like, okay, where do we go?
Yeah.
Like,
Let's use
fuck
that.
this 30-pound jump 100.
Yeah.
Like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, so there's two sides of it. There's the side that everybody will see, which seems like pivoting into a bad day. It's not a good day, pivot down. There's the other side, like, the fuck just happened?
Everything's working.
Like, we need to roll on this. And on those days, and they do happen, my two best totals, I didn't even comprehend what the total was actually going to be until in the warm-up room for my first attempt deadlift. So then I'm like, wait a minute. And it's like when I can't figure the shit out here. It's like I'm asking, like, somebody got a calculator?
Right.
Like, if I do my opener, that's the PR total? They're like, yeah. Like, no way. No way. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Right. And then I would, that was hot. Those days were awesome, by the way. But then it was like, okay, get your head out of this shit. You still have to pull this.
Yes.
So let's pull this. And then, but that was the weird part, is the people that I would compete with, not against, but with, you know, that was at Westside, they knew their total the whole time. I had Louis, right? So we had handlers. I mean, Louis, with the exception of one time, would know exactly what everybody was doing, what the lifts were, what was in the tank. So that also helped tremendously, because I just got to show up, do this, and then be able to vocalize, holy shit, this is good, or this is fucked up.
Right.
Right. So now the fucked up one, that's where Louis would help. And that's like, what is going on here? Because this just felt like dog shit. You know, we didn't have the phones and stuff. So you had to go on. No, you fell out of form. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean I fell out of form? Like, you fell forward, this fell forward. And in your head, you're like, you don't know. I don't know, because I can't remember. All I know is it was fucking hard. Right. You know, so it would have been so cool to be able to have a phone that, you know, a video for them to be able to be like, oh shit, I see what you're doing. Hey, yeah, go up. That was fucked up.
Yeah.
But when you don't know, I mean, you're going on this blind trust. Like, okay, we're going to go up. Did you not see what just happened?
Right. No, I hear you. And it's funny because I had Adam there too. I had Mango there. I had Logan, who was our handler as well, and they were in Christian and Julia, and I just put all of my trust in them. Adam picked the attempts. I was like, dude, I don't give a shit. First off, it's in kilos. Fucking don't even know what that is, right? It makes me feel like a big wuss when there's only 3 plates on the bar for bench and it's 400 pounds. I'm like, this is fucked. But the fact of the matter is, I could only control my technique and how I executed. And I found that comfort in like, all right, just what are the steps? What are the steps? What are the things I need to do? And to have that team of people are like, yeah, go up, do this, do that. Like on the squat, that was exactly what happened to me. My first attempt, I drained it. I went down way farther than I've ever gone down far in terms of a squat before for multiply. And I stood up and it was like, felt heavy as shit. I was like, oh, I don't know. Adam's like, all right, we got this. I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's like, I don't want to see it. I don't need to outthink this. I don't need to try. I need to work on doing the things, because if I do the things I'm supposed to, then it's going to go up. But it's funny you mentioned that, because going into the deadlift, I was like, fuck it. I don't care. I was at this point, I was like, just put whatever the fuck you want on the bar, and I'm just gonna do it. If I can't do it, I can't do it. It's not it. But then it ended up being the best pulls that I've had. I stood up with my second attempt, and I was like, and everybody was like, that was a second attempt? Like, what the fuck? Like, a second attempt looked better than my first attempt. And then I was like, dude, put whatever you want on this fucking bar. Just let me know how hard I have to pull.
Yeah. I think sometimes I was that way on the deadlift, because I got to a point where it was just the last thing you had to do before you were going to go eat.
Yeah.
And so it was,
you're saying too.
I just think, but that relaxed me in a way that, because if I got hyped for the deadlift, I fucked the deadlift up.
Yeah.
So if I actually went and pulled like I didn't care, thinking back, I think what that did is it packed my lats a little bit more because my shoulders are lower. I'm almost slouching in a way, like, just fucking get this over with. Instead of when you're hyped in that fight or flight, and everything's cranked up, you grab and you grip and it's all in the wrong spot where it worked. So anytime, anybody would try to get me fired up, I'm like, just get
away from me.
Because it ain't going to help me. It's going to make it worse. But it's still.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's what I was thinking, reflecting back on it. It was, I think, by having that, I'm not going to say nonchalant, but it was definitely less intense than the other lifts. It allowed me to be more patient on the pull and then get into a better position, because I was like, all right, well, I'll just pull on that. Like, I was in no rush. Which, if I were to get amped up, I would rush it. I would be falling forward. I wouldn't be sitting back far enough, and it wouldn't move well. But it was that nonchalant, sort of just more of a laid back attitude about it, where I was like, all right, just be patient. Just keep putting yourself into a good position, and then just stand up with it. And then it just moved. I was like, what the fuck did I do this shit before? It's so much easier. We ended up getting a few super chats during that. We got Luigi Melli just sent a super sticker. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. We got JTZR1 with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. No question on there. And then we got Finest Jelly Beans Raw said, a few weeks ago, I asked for help on here after failing a squat. Dave gave advice. I used that advice and killed the weight in my meat. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
That's awesome. That's something we like to see. I mean, we're not just talking just to talk here. We are trying to help people, compete, help people get better. And what we actually got another question that just came in. Let's see, where'd that go? Guys, drop all your super chats in here. Make sure you get your questions in, and we'll definitely answer there. Here's a question. Matt Meldy says, hey guys, how much do you feel that front squat improves back squat? Been throwing around 315 for reps at front squat for a few weeks and 525 for back squats. You're not a huge front squat fan, right?
No. So I don't know how.
Or, well, first and foremost, do you think that it would benefit somebody?
For an intermediate, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you start to get a little bit stronger. I think more no. And the reason I think more no isn't because I'm not a fan of it, because I suck at it. Always kind of, I love the harness, I guess I could hold, is if the question is being asked under the context of building a squat, then how many top squatters do front squats?
Right.
Now there are some. I mean, there definitely, Dan Green's one. There's some.
Which I think he would probably be one of the reasons that they are more popular, because you just see him throwing around 600 pounds on a front squat.
But most don't.
Right.
So, and so anecdotally, that's going to answer a lot of things, but it doesn't really answer this at a real level, because are they not doing it because there is a skill acquisition to be able to learn how to do it, and they just don't want to fucking mess with it.
Right.
You know, so, and I think that's the case with a lot of movements that may be able to help some lifters, where you have to make a decision. Like, our cleans, or power cleans, snatches, front squats, you know, are any of these Olympic type variations? And I say that loosely because the front squat's not really.
Well, now they're not in the Olympics anymore.
Well, you get what I'm saying. So yeah, so any of those variations, could they help? I think they all could probably help. Sure. You know, all athletes, but how much? And then is it worth the skill acquisition time? Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of those movements just end up being, no, it's, I got other things that I can do that will accomplish the same thing, where there will be some that are going to come up through different schools of training, different coaches that could be big, strong believers in those. So they're going to be integrated into the program, but they're never going to have that question of, will this be beneficial or not? Because the skill acquisition is just going to be inherently built into the program that they're doing.
100%.
So to answer this would be more along the lines of, who do you train with? Are you training by yourself? What is your history with the front squat? Has it helped you before? I mean, at 325 and 500, you're not obviously a beginner. So as that front squat has gone up, has your back squat gone up? Is there a positive
that would
correlation?
be the follow-up there.
So if there's a positive correlation, then keep it in there until that positive correlation breaks, and then rotate it out into something else, a la conjugate. Not as conjugate as that earlier, but conjugate.
So yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great, if your goal is specifically powerlifting, right? I think it's a great move, or a movement to do in an off season, to give your back squat position a little bit of a break, allow your upper back to be in a new position that it hasn't been in, let you work on some shit that you haven't really worked on. If your goal is strongman, I think it's going to have to be a primary movement in the arsenal, because everything is from that position, right? Like a yoke bar squat, front squats, good mornings, all that shit. Like they're all necessary tools. But again, I think Dave brings up a really good point in terms of skill acquisition is if you are a beginner or an intermediate lifter, is doing a front squat going to benefit you more than just back squatting with better technique?
Yes. I mean, there's as odd as this is going to sound, there's a forgotten component called getting stronger.
Yeah, it's weird.
Right? Where it is, though. It's a forgotten component, to where I've met very, very few people, probably less than a handful of athletes of any kind, that were at a point to where getting them a little bit stronger was not going to help them in the sport that they do.
Correct.
No matter what the sport is. So
correct.
Using the squat as an example, you know, I've met, that would be the only place where I probably would say there's a couple people that their squat was so high compared to their position in football that I would begin to wonder, is there really going to be any correlation of going from this 775 squat to an 825? You know, I don't know. I don't think so. But you know how rare that is? I mean, most of the time we're talking about going from a 275 to a 400, and there's going to be a big fucking
humongous.
I mean, if it's a high school football player and they don't do anything, they don't run, they don't do anything, and they take their squat from a 250 to a 400, same squat. I'm not saying 5 inches higher, different. Same squat from one season to the next season. I'll bet your ass they're faster.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to jump higher. They're going to hit harder. All that's going to correlate over. So with the example that you're talking about, the way my brain works is absolute strength or strength acquisition has to be the number one skill above everything.
Yes.
Right. It's in everything, even if it's MMA, whatever it is, the stronger, all things being equal, which is never the case, by the way.
Right.
But all things being equal, the stronger person will always win. That needs to be the goal of strength and conditioning.
Absolutely.
Stronger.
Well, strength is first. Isn't it?
Yes. But where people get caught up in the nuances is, okay, well, with this now, what do I need to get stronger at? Because if there's 7 movement planes that are defined by this person and 10 by this person and 12 by this person, where the power lifter's got squat, bench, all sagittal.
Right.
Whoever it is, what do I need to get stronger at? So that becomes the first thing. And to me, let's not make it complicated.
The simple answer usually is pretty damn good. Gets you most of the way.
Yeah. I mean, I can say a squat's going to apply to all of it. So let's just take one out. There's one that's going to pretty much impact everything. I'm not saying that's the only thing.
No, for sure.
But I mean, if you want to go through a list, that's where it is. But what I'm trying to say is now they're going to get all focused on, well, I'm supposed to do 7 movements, and out of these 7 movements, this is supposed to happen. Then I need to become better at a front squat. I need to become also better at my back squat. My technique on the bench has to become better. I want to be able to work this. So the whole fucking training ends up becoming movement technique based. And where's the strength?
Right.
So put the strength in first. And this is where I would agree with something that Wendler said tons of times, where if he can take a high school kid with a shitty squat and not increase their technique in the squat at all, but go from a shitty 200-pound squat to a shitty 300, right?
Right.
Then they're going to be a better. I agree.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes.
So I still think technically they need to become better, but I agree with that statement 100%. And sometimes that needs to be kind of constructed into the program, because they're not going to have great technique on everything from the start. So what's the closest technique you can get to not getting hurt? So how shitty can the squat be? How shitty can the bench? How shitty can the hip hinge?
Right.
How shitty can this be before it becomes problematic? As soon as it's close to being in striking range to really make it stronger, push that fucker to get stronger, and then keep those other things lower in the program or on different days.
Yep.
Work the skills and the technique with the goal of getting it to there.
Right.
Where what I see a lot today with the athletes, and probably the people that are listening, not the competitive lifters, is so much focus, two things, all focus on strength with none on technique.
Right.
So they're just muscle fucking everything.
Yeah.
All right. That becomes problematic because nothing really gets better. I mean, they get stronger, but then it halts really,
I've seen a lot
quick.
of football hype videos that look just like that.
Yes. Or it's so oversaturated with technical aspects that
they never actually end up pushing any weight and getting stronger.
Let's say they spend 30 minutes out of a 60-minute training session trying to figure out how to do some anti-rotational conjugate band chain, dead bug, roll crawl or whatever it is. And it's, that's, I'm ranting.
No, I agree, because I've seen that in athletes that I've trained, but I've seen that in just general population clients as well. Is that I've had clients in the past, they're like, I want to squat big, I want to do that. It's like, all right, cool. And then I'm like, they get under the bar and it's awful. It is absolute dog shit. I was like, okay, do you really want a barbell back squat, or do you just want to get stronger and look better naked? They're like, I just want to get stronger and look better naked. I was like, all right, cool. Leg press. Here we go. We're just going to fucking hammer this thing out. Right? Like, and it's like, okay, it's picking and choosing your battles. And sometimes if you had a room full of 50 athletes, and it's like, all right, we got to get them stronger. We have a deadline. We only have 4 weeks. We have 4 weeks. What the fuck can we do?
There's going to be a lot of shit you're going to pull out real quick.
There's going to be a ton of shit.
Yes.
Right? And it's like, all right, we don't have time for this. We don't have time for this. We got to maximize our time. We got to maximize the output. We got to maximize the results. And you may find yourself saying like, wow, that fucking leg press over there looks pretty good. Or everybody's box squatting. I don't give a shit. Hold it in the front, hold it in the back. Here we go. Whatever you want to do. Like this is, there is that level. And it's funny because we've had this conversation before. I don't think we've had it on here before. You can tell the people online that have actually worked with people and teams and groups of people and athletes with how they create programs or coach, right? You can tell that they are aware of their surroundings. You can tell they're aware of time. If you see coaches put things out and it's like, all right, it's 14 exercises and you have to use 17 different pieces of equipment and all these, like all this shit. And it's like, where are you going to do this? It's like, you've obviously only worked with one person and it's yourself, like, and you have all the time in the world. Right. Yes. And that's just one of those things that I think people don't realize when it comes to coaching athletes in general. Is like, your time is so valuable.
Yes. Well, sometimes you can also, and this is a fun exercise per se to do, is take a training day, any various coaching question, and then pull out a calculator or your phone or whatever and just start doing some math, right? So, and then figure out how long, what's the eccentric of a squat typically? What's the concentric?
Yep.
What's the top? So say you got a 2-second eccentric, 2 seconds, says 5 seconds, maybe 6 for each rep. And then they have 6 sets of 10 with 3 minutes programmed for rest. So you start doing the math of this stuff. And I haven't done this for a long time. I probably need to do this again. And a lot of the times you'll be shocked when you start actually doing, and this is exactly what they're writing, which nobody's going to do.
Yeah.
Right? The tempo might be it's never going to be slower, but the tempo might be a shade faster. The rest periods will always be longer.
Oh, for sure.
But sometimes you'll get through half the training session and realize, holy shit, this is 2 hours and 15 minutes.
It's like, where are you going to find that? And it's like, you have 45 minutes.
Well, you think to yourself, who wrote this?
Yep.
And then did they ever even think, obviously they didn't go through it. Otherwise they would have noted at the very beginning of the session, by the way, guys, just to let you know, this is going to take like 3.5 hours.
You're going to be here for the whole afternoon.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I do 10, 15 warm-up sets, then do, 6 sets of 10 with 5. I've seen 5 to 7 minute rest, and it's like, okay, so what the fuck?
Yeah.
6 minute rest on 10 sets right there is an hour of rest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And and this pisses me off, seeing people criticize coaches of different teams, of different whatever, like different colleges, this, that, the other thing. And they're like, oh, their warm up sucks. It's only this, 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 and this. Or, oh, their training sucks. It's like you don't know any of their situations. You don't know what sort of constraints they have on their ability to train their athletes, the time they have, right? If you're looking at, this is why programs on paper can just be very deceiving for a lot of people. Is like, you look at something and like, if you look at something Wendler wrote for London, right? You would probably see like 5 or 6 exercises, like if that. And then it's like, wow, that doesn't take very long. And it's like, yeah, no shit. It's like the attention span of high school kids is so short. You need to be able to get them in, get them out, get the work they need to do to get better.
But once the warm-up's in there, once everything's in there, it's probably peaking right in an hour, which is the time that's allocated or whatever they have allocated. So that's the other thing, is that, as you said, they're going to look at it and say, well, this doesn't look like a lot. We'll do the math, right? Yeah, maybe it's a lot more. And the majority of the people are not meatheads.
No.
Right. So, the people that will come out here, they're meatheads, right?
Oh, for
so
sure.
I'm not, unless absolutely necessary because they're out of shape condition, I'm not programming rest periods. It's going to take a long time. They don't do it. Could they do it in 45 minutes? Oh God, yes. Easy.
Oh, for sure.
It's, with gear, without the, But yes, they can, but they have the time, so they can so it's one variable I don't have to contend with that other coaches have to contend with.
Right.
Where you start to put that in there, that changes your programming substantially.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, it changes how you coach, because now it's like, kids, shut the hell up.
Yeah, right.
You know, you keep talking, the buzzer is going to go off. You got to get out of here, and you don't have your shit done. It also may change where you're going to stick certain things. You know, things that are going to go in the end are going to be very, very low priority for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes coaches will say, well, I stick all the core stuff at the very end. Are you sure you want to do that? Just saying, because
just don't even write it on paper. Like,
yes,
don't even write
exactly,
it down.
because they might not be there.
Yeah.
You know, they might have to cut out, you know, or whatever it is. And so then they'll say, well, core is the most important. Okay.
It's like,
so you stick it at, so
yeah.
it's a weird phenomenon.
Yeah, absolutely. Super chat came in from Jerku. I have a deadlift meet in June, but planning to focus the next 6 weeks on technique. How would you program a technique cycle when focus is only on the deadlift? So 6 weeks to a deadlift only meet. And he wants to focus majority on
June,
technique.
6 months.
In June, planning to focus next 6 weeks on technique. So 6 weeks out of his program going to that meet in June. So the next 6 weeks are just technique.
There's a lot of, I don't know, sumo deadlift. So it's what I would do if it's technical work. I need to know what the other work is, because recovery is still the more you got to recover
right
from whatever you're doing. So if say he wants to do technique work, but he was going to push the squat hard during this time. Well, then I can sit here and say, well, I think you should do the technique work for your deadlifts specificity wise. You say Monday and Friday, then on Wednesday, you know, use a yoke bar for a little bit of heavier fives type things.
Yep.
Which is going to be, try to simulate the same movement pattern best you can, if it's suspended good mornings or whatever it's going to be with that. And that would be a good idea. But I don't know if the squat's going to be, because that's a good idea if everything is deadlift oriented.
Right.
Right. So everything else outside of just basic bodybuilding hypertrophy stuff is at a level to where it's not going to push the recovery demands higher than just normal training, where this, you don't have to account for that. Then that's what I would say there. And with the deadlift, I would say that I would keep everything. If it's 6 weeks, I would keep everything with singles. You can write, it can be a triple, but I call them step back triples.
Right. Yeah.
So
reset.
it's a pull, reset, pull.
Yep.
So it can be that. So that way you're actually working that technique. And then over a 6 week period of time, I would probably program the volume of the technical reps from, I don't know what he pulls either. Just throw shit out there for no other reason. Say 50 technical reps on week 1, you know, and then just drive that up all the way for the 6 weeks. So 50, 75, 100, you know, all the way up to wherever that ends up being. And those are the technical reps, right? So the weight probably isn't going to exceed 60%. You know, so it's, you don't want the technique to break down, but you're also working the technique. So after a few weeks, you have to see, because there's different types of technique. There's the regular technique, but I'll just keep it there because I don't want to get it too convoluted, you know, because it is just 6 weeks and there's a lot of time after that. So I would just focus on that, film the shit out of every single one of them, get to a point where whatever your end goal here after the 6 weeks is, you should be able to film one of those training sessions for your deadlift, and every single repetition you do from the quarters, or not the quarters, from a plate per side up to whatever you're using looks exactly the same.
Right.
There's no deviation. That's the goal. Now, will you achieve it? Probably not. But if you get 70% of that, then you're golden, because when this starts, you should probably end up being at like 20%. It's going to suck.
Yeah. And I think the step back technique of resetting on every rep really brings down those percentages.
Yes.
Because for most people, they forget that the deadlift is, they're like, oh, my first rep sucked, but you should have seen my second and my third. It's like, it doesn't matter, man.
No.
Like it's that first rep that you need to make sure that one is as pristine and perfect as you can make it.
Yes.
And even at a lower percentage of 60%, 65%, 70%, you start to really notice what fatigues first.
Yes. Very few people are going to have consecutive reps look the same without a step back.
Absolutely.
Because even the ones that can wedge really, really good, because what happens is the hip position changes on the second rep. But even the ones that can get that first rep, the hip position to be almost identical as the second, what happens is those people are going to be pulling more. So there's going to be more bar bend. So, and on the second one, they're just going to tap. So the second one it still becomes a more, I don't want to say a partial, but it's a shorter range.
Right.
Because the plates are going to hit sooner and they're not letting the flex come out of the bar. So very, very few so I've seen some, but even Duffin Mike comes to mind with his super heavy triple of whatever he did it with, a grand or whatever the hell it was. There was still, they're very close. The first, the second, and the third is very, very close, but you can see the range of motion changes a little bit. Obviously, it's a lot of weight. There's a lot of bar bend. And it would be dumb for him to set it, all the way down. But there's still that little change.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, the deadlifts can be the most frustrating lift to train.
It is.
Because it's so mental. It's dead stop. It's mental. And there are days where you're like, wow, that feels really good. And then there are days you're like, what the fuck just happened? I just got pinned.
No, but I like the idea of the technical phase, because the wedging is so hard to really lock in and learn with it really is. And because there's also a minimum weight there. Say maybe it's 30%, 40%, I'm not too sure, but there's a minimum weight there that plays into it.
And there's a maximum weight there too, because if you start creeping up to 75, 80%, like the technique, if you haven't trained that technique enough, it's going to change. Your body's going to revert back to whatever it does whenever the weight starts to get a little heavy.
Yes.
All right. A couple more super chats came in. Gavin Willie, big super chat. Thank you very much. He says he's buying an Elite FTS power bar right now. Thank you very much, Gavin. That's awesome. The next one from Matt, is that Meidel? Something like that. How does someone get signed up for a Train Your Ass Off event?
Where did I just put the video? I just put the video somewhere. Just follow our Instagram. That would be the best way. So it's when it comes up, it'll be a post on the Instagram feed. I'll always I think we put them on both, but I'll always put it on mine.
Yeah, we put it on both.
But it goes on both. And then what that does is just makes people aware of the dates, and then that will lead to a survey, which will actually, it doesn't make them even aware of the date. No, it does. We'll make them aware of the dates, and they go to the survey, and then just fill out the survey.
Yep.
And then you wait. You know, I mean, it's just the last couple. There's been over 140 people. That was 10 slots. So, and I don't know any of the people that get selected. I take that back. I knew Katie the last time because of Dan Dellenberg. So I knew her, and she tried to get in the last couple before. So I knew her. So that did kind of play a little bit in her favor.
Sure.
I've seen her name a couple times before. But that still would not have happened if it doesn't fit into the group context to be able to make it flow.
Right.
So that's the bigger thing. So when I look through to determine who's going to be selected, the squat matters, but how much they squat doesn't, which is a weird thing to say. So if I want, the last group that I did was when you had your meet. I wanted big squatters.
Well, and you got
so I got 3 bigger squatters. So, and I think it's like 650 to 800 was kind of where it was.
Yep.
So because of that, I don't want to throw in a 300-pound squatter because the weight changes and stuff like that. And the skill set, I got to match the group. Mm-hmm. So now how do I decide that? Well, the group before we didn't have, I think 450 was kind of the squats that we were looking at. And there'll probably be groups where actually one of them, it wasn't even that. It was probably in the threes. So it's not like I'm pulling big squatters or small squatters or medium squatters or any of this. The squat is how I'm grouping them, though. I will say that. Mm-hmm. That's the first, because that takes the longest amount of time.
Right.
By far. I mean, this last one was fucking long. It was 4.5 hours just squatting.
Shit.
So we didn't get out of here until 2 a.m. on that Saturday. But they're stronger. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of technical work that we had to do. Then you got to work up, for a physical breakdown. Yep. Well, when they were that much stronger, there's more time working up, because there's more sets that need to be done. So it's just like, I get stronger people, it should go faster. It's like, no, it didn't work that way. If I get people that are more beginners, it should go faster. It didn't work that way.
No, it's just not going to go fast.
Yeah. So that's how it goes. And that's it. And then after that, we'll send an email saying you're considered. Sign up.
And I think that's a good point to make too, is just because you're not squatting 700, 800 pounds doesn't mean you're not going to get selected, right? Because we've had people that we've selected that say, hey, you're selected, and they've said, no, I don't think I'm good enough, and they've declined it.
Which is weird, because why fill it out?
No shit.
I mean, because when they fill it out, they know what the price is, because that's it's in the survey. We're very transparent, so they know what that is. And if they were selected, and say it's 185 or 200-pound squat, more than likely there's 3 other people
surrounded by the same level
that are at that very same level.
Right.
So, and that sometimes becomes a little bit of a pain in the ass, because if you have that and then somebody pulls out for whatever reason, you got to replace them. You got to go back to your main list,
right,
and find somebody else that's close to that. And they're not all like people think they are. They're all over the map. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're everywhere. So it's like, okay, can I put, a 500-pound squatter in this 180-pound squat group? Yeah, fuck, that's not going to work. And so.
All right. Next one is from Ash McKee, and I think this is the last one. Hey guys, older lifter, lost confidence on heavy squatting. No reason, just old. Any advice? Welcome. Probably all in my head. Thanks as always, Ash. So he's lost confidence in their heavy squat, right? There was it's just in his own head about his squat. And I think he just wants to know if you have any tips, any advice on how to break the mental barrier that obviously has been put up recently.
Well, I don't know if it's really advice. I mean, what are you waiting for? Just quit.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, no, I mean, seriously, on things like that, it's like, then what are you staying around for?
Right. Yeah. There's nothing that you're going to say or I'm going to say or anybody's going to say. It's like,
no, he needs to have, I don't want him to misunderstand what I'm trying to say here is it's okay to be done and just never, ever do it again.
Yeah.
Right. So what I'm asking him to be able to do is, yes, he's in his own head about all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So the first thing to ask yourself is, why not just quit? Right? Because he doesn't like me saying this. I'll guarantee that. Nobody's going to like me having this conversation of, well, just fucking quit then. Right? Because I want him to get mad and say, I don't want to fucking quit. Then I want to say, why? Tell me why you don't want to fucking quit.
Yep.
Because right there, I'm telling you why you need to fucking do this. You see what I'm saying? It's not that complicated. Lean into adversity. If you have this adversity that you're going back and forth with your head, fucking lean into it and say, why is this? All right, what are my options?
Yep.
I quit. Whatever you want to call it, stop doing this exercise, do something else, move on to something else. Mm-hmm. That's an option. It's Absolutely. A realistic, feasible option. So tell me why in the fuck you haven't chosen that, and I'll tell you where you're going to go.
Well, he also said his heaviest squat in a meet was 734. That was 20 years ago. Currently struggling with 490-ish. Maybe I'm just old.
It's not here. I mean, I get where he's going with that.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that. I live with this shit. You have to realize with the squat, what you're really embracing isn't the weight, right? So it was 725 20 years ago, whatever it was, is what he just said, right?
Yep.
Now it's 495. The strain is the same, right? So the effort and the strain that it takes him to stand up with, if it's 495 now, let's say you've just, I get it. We're not as strong as what we used to be. I fucking trust me. I get that. I live with that. It pisses me off just as much as anybody else. But I've accepted the fact that that's not going to change.
Right.
But what I do have control over is I can strain like a motherfucker like I did on my best. Actually, I can strain harder than what I did when I was at my best. So maybe it's not going to be 725. Maybe it's going to be 550, but you need to train for 6 months to prepare yourself to grind through that motherfucker till your eyes want to bleed and your eyes want to pop out and your nose want to bleed and you get all purple and, you know, the zits start popping up on your back that you didn't know that you had from 30 years ago. You know, you're just like a big fucking tomato ready to burst in the bottom, right? So that's what you're training for. You're training for that being able to beat that strain, you know? So yes, it's awesome. It's awesome to think this is the better part of the squat. To think as you're getting ready and the weight's loaded, you think this is the strain that I'm looking for, right? It's like fucking Moby Dick, man. It's like you're going from, you know what I'm saying? This is the whale right here.
This is the white
This
whale.
is my fucking white whale, man. This is it. And you hit your salts, as long as it's not the peppermint ones, but you hit your fucking salts, you get ready, then you get underneath it and you lock it and you sit down and you just kill it. You obliviate it. That's awesome. That's fucking awesome, but it's also kind of disappointing because you wanted the white whale, right? But at the same time, being the meathead, if you get the white whale and you got to struggle like a bitch to stand up with it, it's the greatest feeling in the world. But then you think, fuck, now I need to deload.
Oh shit, that was heavy.
now I need to find a new, I need to find a different goal because it's going to be hard to beat this. So just reclassify what you think a squat is, where he could be thinking it's that, you know, 800 or whatever.
Right. Awesome. And now that the rays of God are on me now, this is good. That was actually the last super chat, and I think that'll be a really good time to kind of wrap this up. So any last words for anybody, or you wanna wrap this up? You want me to wrap it up? What do you think? Because this is the last one that me and you will be doing for this year. I think you'll be doing a solo one next week.
You can wrap it up.
Cool. So guys, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today, but also for all the ones in the past, all the ones over the last year. Personally, I want to thank everybody who's subscribed, liked, shared all the information and content that we've put out over the last year. I am beyond grateful for the opportunity to be here, beyond grateful for Dave and the entire Elite FTS team. So on behalf of myself and Dave, as always, like, subscribe, do all the things. Thank you very much for an awesome year. And I will see you guys next year. And Dave will see you guys next week.
And have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. All the things.
Is that over?
Yep. I think so. I think so.
Happy everything.
Happy everything.
Happy holidays.
Guys.
There you go.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thank you very much. And we will see you in the next one.